Welcome back to the Imperfect podcast, coming to you today from Mastermind Studios. I'm your host, Kirsten Pfeiffer, and I am so excited because today I am joined by my lovely friend, Lily Kincade. The Lily Kincade.
Hello, guys.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Lily is an amazing singer, songwriter, actress, all around just creative powerhouse, and is one of the most encouraging and pure-hearted people I know. So I'm just excited to have her on today and just chat about life and the creative process. So welcome, Lily.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. You hype me up too much. You hype me up way too much. You are so amazing.
It is the truth, nothing but the truth. So first, let me just start out by having you explain a little bit about who you are. I know when I first met you, you were living here in LA, but now you're in Nashville. So just tell everyone a little bit about your journey and how you got to be where you are now.
Here I am. So my journey, I grew up in Kansas City on the Kansas side. I've always wanted to move to California, and I was going to after I graduated high school because I loved creating. I loved writing music. I loved acting. I just loved getting to have a voice and get to talk to people. And my dad has a family business, so he could never move. And it just the timing was perfect and everything aligned. And I ended up moving when I was 14, right before I started high school, to California, did independent school, was working, training, figuring out what I wanted to do creatively, but then also who I was as a person. Yeah. So it was everything kind of at once, and lived
at
here.
That time you were acting primarily, right?
Yeah, I loved acting, and I did everything I could because music was always the end goal, I think. I realized that I never had a place to express my emotions just because I always grew up being the one who has to have it all together for my friends so I could be there for them. And it wasn't until I really found songwriting and writing, and I was okay, this is a safe space. Because I would act because I was I get to feel my emotions, but it was never my emotions. It was somebody else's or a character that I was playing. But it all worked together, you know. I wouldn't change it. And for the longest time I didn't know what my story was. It wasn't I had this tragic backstory, and that was something that I struggled with internally, was feeling because all of my struggles were internal, they weren't external. And so it was really hard for me to justify why should I do this? Or why do I deserve this? And then I just had this moment, and it was it's who you are now. It doesn't it doesn't have to be something crazy. Your story, what you're going through now, what you're thinking is special, and that's what makes you unique. So instead of trying to create this narrative or exaggerate, just be honest. And that was me. I ended up randomly getting a place in Nashville, and I'm lucky enough to have my family still live here, so I can come back here and travel, and next year 2022 be touring. And just I always say my music is a tool that I'm gifted with, but I always say my gift and my passion is communication, and finding a way to somehow write words on a paper and have them connect with somebody else, and then have them talk to me and I can talk to them. And I don't know, I feel especially with this year and everything happening, it's just we're realizing that communication and being connected to people is the most important thing.
Yeah, I love all of that. And you are such a good communicator, not only in person, but also through your work. And as a songwriter, I feel you articulate things that people feel, but they don't know how to articulate it. And that's the cool thing about being an artist, is you get to use these gifts to make people feel seen. And I feel you really do that. And I love what you said too about owning your story, even if it hasn't been a crazy story. And I feel we're always struggling with that imposter syndrome almost of I'm not worthy, I don't
every
deserve
day
this.
me.
Yeah. And it's once you realize that pain is pain, the pain that you've walked through, even if it wasn't something super traumatic, has been pain in your life. And that connects all of us, because the greatest pain, my acting coach says this all the time, the greatest pain that you, Lily Kincade, have experienced is equal to the greatest pain that someone else has experienced, even if it's way more traumatic. That still is your reality, and that pain connects all of us. So I feel once we understand that our point of view on the world is unique, and just be authentic in that, I think that's what connects all of us through art. So I really love seeing that come to life in your work. And guys, her EP, you just released your second EP, right? Or where are you at on all that?
I have On Spotify, my EP, Distracting Myself, which came out in November. There's 7 songs on that, which is super exciting. So that's on Spotify. That's everywhere. And then I had 2 special like holiday singles. And then my next project, I'm releasing a song. I committed at the beginning of the year to release a song every single month. So that'll all like unfold these next couple months. But it's exciting. I got a couple of Spotify editorial placements, 100% independent right now, just because I knew I wanted to like, I'm a 0-100 person in everything I do. Yeah. And like, especially now with quarantine and just everything and life being different, like people are always like, oh, it's going to go back to normal. I'm like, it's not going to go back to normal. You have to learn to like adapt. You have to learn to see the positive in everything and like figure out how you're going to make it work. Like you just have to be a problem solver. Right. And for me, I was like, I just want to make sure that like time is valuable. I feel like we all know that now, that it's like we are not promised unlimited time. We don't know what's going to happen. Like all of our plans completely changed. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, I want to be really intentional with who's on my team, like who I'm writing with, who's producing. And like, I never wanted to be in a place where I'm like having people do things for me or having a manager or having these people because I'm lazy or because like it's easy. I wanted to be in a place where it was like, I know how to do it all myself and I know how hard it is. Yeah. So I appreciate it when I do have those things. Yeah. And then also so that I never like, I don't know. So then I'm not, it's easy to like get tempted and take the like things that seem good in the short term. But in the long term, it's like, you can't, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're going to regret it.
Yeah. Because if you don't know, I mean, I've heard a financial advisor say this. It's like great to have a financial team and a bookkeeper and all of that, but you should know before you hire someone what it is that they're doing so that you don't get taken advantage of, A, and B, you can better communicate with them. And I feel like that also transcends to your creative team. It's like I edit a lot of my videos myself, but I am slowly bringing people on to help. And at least then I know what it is that I'm asking them to do so that I A, appreciate the work, and B, I can communicate with them more effectively. And I think in your career, what's been really cool to watch is that you've been so intentional about that also, so that you don't lose your freedom creatively as an artist, because I think it's easy when you're getting started in any creative industry. The people that are more established sometimes want to take advantage of that, or, you know, you lose your negotiating power when you need more from someone else, right? And so it's been really cool to see you come into your own as an artist, like doing all these things, literally down to like planning the photo shoots and being your own creative director. You have to. Yeah.
In a way of like, that is the one thing that makes you, your personal brand. Yeah. Like if you think that you don't have enough, or you think of like, oh, like this person's more experienced, but like it's really not about that. Like you have your personal brand, and like your voice and your story is the one thing that nobody else has. So there's no like, that's your leverage. Yeah,
they can't take that.
They can't take that away. They don't have that. Like nobody else in the world has that. And so it's just like leaning into that. It's like, and like creative, anything that's really creative is subjective. Like, right. So if you like, I always find myself when I'm like in comparison mode or when I'm doubting myself, I like have to snap out of that, because it's, what is there to compare?
Right. So how have you gotten to that point of really finding your identity and sticking to that? If someone's listening, like, how do you go down that path? I mean,
this is like something practical, but I started journaling at the end of 2019, and I'm like a crazy journaler. Like I'm a crazy, because I like, there's so many things that I could never, I just needed a safe space where I could like just brainstorm and just write everything down. Like sometimes I'm like, I can't even read my handwriting because I'm writing so fast, or I'm like scribbling or coloring or whatever. But I needed a place to like figure out my thoughts, and also like be alone with yourself. Granted, I'm definitely an introvert. Like I recharge when I'm alone, and when I'm out, I love being social, but it like drains my battery.
Yeah, me too.
And I realized a lot of people you have to get past the issues. Like no one wants to be alone when they have things they're going through, because if they're alone, they have to deal with those issues.
Have to look at it.
I was kind of forced to, as well as like the rest of the world, to like deal with our issues when we went into lockdown, and that really helped a lot. And then also I think just you have to tune out the outside voices. You have to figure out what it is you want independently of other people's opinions, and then you can take into factor like, oh, I really trust this person. I'm going to ask them what they think about this new project or whatever. But it's like, you got to figure out what you want, because at the end of the day, it's like, you want to be happy. Like take money. I always say like take those things out of the equation. Money is just like a tool. It comes and goes.
Right.
Time is the only limited thing we have. And so it's do what makes you happy. Yeah. You know?
And then the money does follow
it
from
follows
there.
through.
Yeah.
It's like stop focusing on people are like, oh, I'll be successful when I make this much money. And it's like, no, you won't. Like you won't, because it will never be enough. It will never be fulfilling as like doing what you love every day. I was journaling on my birthday, like questions to ask yourself every year or whatever. And one of them was saying, if you had the next year off and didn't have to work, what would you do? Yeah. And I like can say this 100% authentically. I was like, I would do exactly what I'm doing now because I love the process. And you have to love the process. Yeah. The awards, the tours, the like #1 song, all those things are just like cherries on top. Like you're not doing that 98% of the time. Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's easy to get caught up in that comparison game of like, oh, well, what they're doing looks so much more glamorous and whatever. And it's like, I have found for myself that really learning to enjoy the process takes away from that comparison, because it gives you gratitude for what you're doing in the present, and then being present kind of allows you to have blinders in a way. Yes. And so what has helped you with comparison? With comparison, it's literally just leaning into my own uniqueness. Like if I'm feeling comparison, or I'm scrolling on Instagram and just like in this loop, I will go and, this may sound weird, but like I'll go listen to my own music. Yeah. If I'm like sometimes I'm now at a point where I can like enjoy music, but for a while when I didn't know, I would like listen to it and like judge it because it would make me insecure. Yeah. And so like go back to your gifts, whether it may be like something that you've done that's inspired you, or like if I'm feeling really about comparison, like I'll go work on something that makes me happy. Right. You know? And I think for me, I've gotten to the point in my work as an actress where I'm like, because I would, same thing, like if I'm watching someone do like an amazing scene in acting class, I'm like, then you're like, I could never do that. Oh my gosh, I'm horrible. But exactly. It's like, but then get inspired, but also get inspired by that. Because also if those are the people that are your peers and that you're surrounded by, and they're creating amazing work, it's like, I'm capable of that too. And I think sometimes surrounding yourself with people that challenge you 1000% is what sharpens you. I mean, iron sharpens iron. And so I think it's a very fine line between comparing and being inspired by other people. Yeah. And I always say it's like, it's all about, life itself is all about perspective. I'll say it again. Life is all about perspective, because it is true. Think about if I was in a class, or if I was in a write, and I was like, I always strive to be like the not worst person in the room, but like the most green person in the room, because I want to like grow. And in order to grow, I'm going to need to be surrounded by people who are better than me or more experienced. And like my mindset, I could be like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. I'm the worst person in the room. Like, they're not gonna like any of my ideas. Like I don't even know why I'm here. I don't belong here. Or I could think about it as if like, I'm in the room with all of these people. Yeah. They must have thought that I had some ability, and like, you know what? I'm going to work my hardest because they're here too. Like you're in the same room. And same with, when I was acting, it's always like you see somebody who's really successful, or like in this TV show, like in the waiting room, and it's you're like, oh, you got the audition too. Yeah, like you were invited. Yeah. Exactly. And like, yes, it's not always easy, but I just try to like always see like both perspectives, because at least if you can identify that there's two perspectives, you can easily like slowly start to retrain your brain to naturally go to that. Yes, it's like awareness is the first step, because we do have so many like narratives that either we've told ourselves or we've believed our whole lives, and it's really easy to not even realize that those things are playing in the background and kind of navigating how we see life. And once you can become aware of it and be like, oh wait, that's not true, and then like you said, retrain your perspective of like, what's that quote? It's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Yeah. And like realizing that when you're out of your comfort zone, you're growing. Like the only way we're going to grow is if we put ourselves out of our comfort zone, surround ourselves with people that have different gifts than us, that, you know, are more established than us. Like those are the people that will sharpen us. So I love that you have that perspective. And it's been really cool to see your work evolve as an artist. And like, I honestly feel like you've been so prolific this last year with like releasing and creating your artistry and releasing music. And so how do you remain inspired in a way that's not striving? Because I feel like it's easy to be like, oh, I need to release so much music. And then that leads to striving sometimes. And then you get burnt out. But I don't feel like that is you. I feel like you've gotten to this point of like flow where you're just, like you're enjoying the process. So how do you
stay inspired without getting burnt out?
You just, like what you said with the process, you have to figure out your process, but I have this ability, and I've always had this ability to like helicopter view. Like I zoom out and in to like the details very frequently. Like I always know the end goal. Like I always say it's like driving. It's like, I know where I'm going in the end. And if I know where I'm going, if I have the address, I'm able to kind of stop along the way if I see places I want to stop and not be anxious. Yeah. Like I know it seems overwhelming, but it's like the end goal doesn't have to be something you get to tomorrow or in a week. Like it can be something that's just like the ultimate goal that every day you're taking little steps for. And I think for me, I realized this because one of my best friends and co-writers told me this. And I guess I just hadn't had this perspective, but she was like, Lily, you write everything like as you go through it. And I never thought I did, but I do. Yeah. Like, and that's why I'm so like these, because it's chapters of life. Yeah. It's like the different stages I'm going through, the different phases. And so that has helped me a lot creatively, because it's like, okay, I'm going through this thing right now. I'm going to write about it, make a project. As I'm like right now, it's like, well, I have all the songs written, and now I'm working on the production for my next project. And I'm out of that stage of life. Like this next project is about me. It was like the story of me, like figuring out who I was, like moving away from home for the first time. And like, I'm not in that space anymore. So I can't even write songs from that headspace. So now I'm like in this new space. Yeah. But I think it's like, don't try to duplicate what you did in the past. Yeah. Just try to be like present as possible, you know?
Yeah. And then like enjoy, because I feel like sometimes when I watch, because it's a similar production schedule with acting, it's like you'll film something and then it takes like a year for, I think acting might be a little longer. Yeah. But I mean, even with a short film, Faithfully, that Lily was in. I was in, guys. Faithfully. Yeah, which exciting news coming with that soon.
Ooh, I'm excited to tell you.
Anyhow, I'm still like, I feel like I've like hit that with like, it's like a dead horse. I'm like, I am so over it because I've seen it so many times, and I feel like I see an old version of who I was, and I've grown since then.
And it's hard because it's like, I feel the same way with my songs on Spotify. I'm like, I want to skip this, but then I'm like, no, I need to listen to it because I don't want to mess up the like ratio or whatever.
Right, but more than that, just like honoring who you were at that point. Yes. And how it was part of the process, like we've been saying, and how that got you to where you are now. And so it's like, I see myself even as an actor and a filmmaker in Faithfully, and I'm like, gosh, I've grown so much since then. I don't even want to like watch this or showcase it. But
that's so good.
I needed that stepping stone to get to where I am now, and just being able to have markers of that growth, because I think especially as a creative, we don't have natural like next levels, whereas like in another job, it's like, here's your promotion.
And then like you do these steps. Yeah. And it's like, it is so true. And there is something to that where it's like, it's kind of, people like, and this goes for anything, like people like to feel like they discovered you. Yeah. That's just something that everybody likes, because it's like, we see growth in somebody and that inspires growth in us. Like when we're like, well, if they started from here and they got to there, well, maybe then I can do that. Yeah. And so like, that's why I like use the term chapters, because I think it's so like perfect, because we say the story of our life. Well, then it's like, that can be too overwhelming sometimes, because then I'm like, oh, well, that's so bad. I don't even want to listen to that, or I don't even want to look at that anymore. But it's like, that was a year ago. That was 2 years ago. Like that was a chapter of my life, and that helped me grow. I met this person because of it. And now I'm in this next chapter, and it's going to grow and continue to change. Yeah. But like, it is hard sometimes to not like beat yourself down. Right. But it's like, it's almost better though. 'Cause it's like, look how much you've grown.
Exactly. And I love what you said about like inspiring other people through that, because it does take vulnerability to put your work out there, and especially when it's old work, and to celebrate that. But I think, like you said, that vulnerability allows people to see the journey and to see the progress, and inspires them and empowers them to step into what they want to do and know that it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, that's why the name of this podcast is Imperfect.
Because guess what? Nothing's perfect.
Yeah, it's boring. Like
there's nothing that's perfect.
Yeah. So I'm really passionate about that, and I love seeing you evolve as an artist and seeing your journey, and especially like when you moved to Nashville. I feel like that's when things really clicked for you, and I'd love for you to just tell people what your journey was like in that like season of isolation from your family.
I needed isolation.
Yeah. What'd you learn about yourself during that time?
Because Okay, so for like the 4.5, 5 years I was in California, it was great. I always knew it was always music. That's why the acting, it like never fully worked out. I was always like second choice or like all these things, because it was that, but I was distracting myself. Like my first EP that I put out in quarantine was called Distracting Myself. Like that was the first song I wrote it was like March 18th I wrote that song. It was like the day after Nashville got shut down. And it was just, people think it happened so fast, like how I honed in on who I was, but it didn't. Like it was 5.5 years. It was just 4.5 years. I had distractions, so I couldn't fully focus. And so like God moved me to Nashville, and I was like forced to be, like I had to, that was my only thing. There's literally like no distractions there. Yeah. And also then on top of that, with quarantine, it was just like, okay, now there's like no zero. Like there was a little bit, I could go to different shows or do things, but it was still music, like very music focused. And that allowed me to really just like focus in and put the blinders on. Like it was, we didn't have a choice. It was like, you got to put the blinders on. Like you can't be comparing yourself. Like everyone is at home. Every single person, no matter if they're super famous or whatever, is in the same position. And so it's like that you really have no excuse but to like think about your issues and like actually think about what scares you. And I always say like music for me, like I love performing. Like that's how you know if you're like an artist or writer. It's like I love being able to talk to people. Like I just want, music is just a tool. The 2 hours that you do a show is like the cherry on top. That's booking the job. That's filming the job. The hard part is like you're doing 6 hours of meet and greets every tour. Like you are, but that's what I love. Like is all of that, is that stuff. And I realized that it's putting the imperfect stuff, it's putting the like fears that you have in your head, like vocalizing those, your weaknesses become like your greatest strengths. And like time and time again. And it's so like, we want to be like, oh no, like, or we like do it for a little bit and then we're like, oh, like, it's just like every single time I'm like, the more like, not necessarily like, you don't want to, a lot of people are trying to be like vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable.
Yes, because it's
like
not authentic.
It's like this, it's like an inauthentic, where it's like, okay, like, it feels forced. It should never feel like that. That's why I've never like tried to make up some like crazy story of like, oh, this happened to me and this, and like, look what I've overcome. Cause it's like, that's not real.
Right. And people are so good at sensing authenticity. And like, we don't even know it. I mean, that's why like when you see bad acting, it's cause the person is like not being authentic. And we don't really know. We just know. Most non-actors don't know how to articulate it. They just see it as bad acting. But what they're really seeing is someone faking it and being inauthentic. And when you see that like brilliant acting that moves you, that's someone being so authentic and vulnerable and just like shield off. And I think it's something that translates across all artistry. And so it's cool to see that. And I feel like it tracks now, where it's like, okay, you had that like when lockdown happened and when you went to Nashville, and then you like you said, it wasn't just overnight. That was like years leading up to that point. But then once
blinders were on, then it was very quickly. It was like very fast. I figured out, and then I had to be like, okay, now I know exactly what I have, and now I need to guard it. Like you don't want to get, you need to create as much as you can. You need to write as much as you can until you get to a place of, okay, I know Lily. Like I knew, because I used to be so anxious over missing things, like opportunities. I was like, oh, I never want to I can't leave California. I can't leave Nashville because I'm going to miss a session. And like, what if that, like we write a hit song, all this. And I'm like, no, because I know, now that I know myself, I know if I'm not there, the song's not going to be the same as if I were there.
Yeah. It's so powerful. No one can tell, like, and it's the same thing with like, even in my writing lab, my writing teacher is like, no one's going to steal your idea. Because even if they do, they can't tell your story the way that you tell your story. Like we could have the same idea for a screenplay, but the way you see the world is so fundamentally different than how I see the world, just because we're completely unique individuals, that there's no way it's going to be the same story. So once you know that what you have to offer and that fingerprint is like what makes you unique and no one can take that from you, it, like you said, it takes away that fear of missing out. It takes away that you're like, I'm running out. It's like I'm running out of time. Like blah, blah, blah. It's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, you have to think in like growth. It's like most people are not dreaming like too big. They're dreaming too small in a sense. And it's like you're just limiting yourself. Like if I was like, oh, it's probably never gonna do this. I was like worst case scenario everything. Yeah. And then like I compare it. I guess how I go about making decisions or like doing things that scare me is I literally think about, okay, what's the present like, what do I have in the present and what do I have if it worst case scenarios? So like with a song, it could be like, okay, I have this song. I'm nervous to put it out, but I really want to put it out. Okay, so right now, who's hearing it? Me, maybe like my friends that I'm sending it to, like it's living on my Dropbox in my computer. Okay, if I put it out and like nobody listens to it, worst case scenario, but me and my friends.
Same situation.
So I'm like, why not put it out? Maybe like 2 more people would listen to it.
Right.
And like, it really does. Like, I say this with anything. It's like, it just, no matter what, it's like, why not? Like I've started to say why not to everything. And if there is a legitimate reason why not, like if it's for safety or this, okay, that makes sense. But if it's like, oh, I'm scared they're not gonna like me. Everyone's too busy thinking about themselves. Like you're scared that they're not gonna like you.
They're not even thinking about you.
You're thinking about yourself though.
You're
scared that they're not gonna like you. Like even your thoughts are back to your own.
Right.
And it's more of like a realizing that everyone's thinking about themselves and like not in a bad way. Like we're thinking about ourselves, but it's like let's think about ourselves and like what we can give to others instead of like what they're gonna like think about us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's such a powerful way of like shifting it. And I do think even, you know, those fears like, do I want to release this? Do I want to, it's like for me realizing I get to do this, you know,
we get
to
and
do
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's why you have to love the process because like putting out a song or like when your film comes out, when your film gets sold, when it's like, that's a little moment. It's like, that's right. Like that's like 5% maybe of like the entire process.
Right.
It's like we have to love like the hard work. Like I love it. Like there's nothing else I would like rather do. Like the moment, at least for me when I'm writing songs, like all of us usually like, or one of us will usually record a voice memo like the entire time or for like when we're coming up with things because like, what if we say something genius or like, you know, we don't want to forget it. If we're just like, if a perfect lyric comes up and like, it's amazing being able to go back and look at those things because it like I can't even describe it. You're probably the same way. Any creative knows what I'm talking about. It's like that moment where everything just like clicks and you're like, how do we, oh my God, we just wrote the chorus. Like, and it just like, it's so magical that it's like nothing compares to that. And it's like, there's nothing like, there's no like drug. There's like nothing that compares to like when you're creating something from nothing. Cause I always say like, that's why after I'm writing or after I'm doing things, I get like drained because it's different than doing something where you're just problem solving. But when you're creating in any sense, you're not problem solving, you're creating and you're problem solving. Like you are creating, like for me, it's, I write so often that I can become like numb to it and I have to take a step back and be like, this didn't exist before. It wasn't like you were just trying to like make it sound better or edit it. It's like
you're literally creating
from nothing, from literally just thoughts in your head. And so that I think that's something so cool. It's to like embrace it, even with acting, even with whatever it is you do. If you're an entrepreneur, it's like you're creating ways of doing things from absolutely nothing. And I think that's super, I don't know, that's cool.
That is cool.
Like, give yourself a pat on the back.
And like you said, just not growing numb to that. Like it is so special what we're able to do. And again, like whether you're an artist or not, and you're listening to this, like what you do, even if you're a doctor, that is so unique. And like your skill set and your gifts are so unique, and only you, like even though there's a ton of doctors, like only you do what you do. And
it's the personality. It's like, okay, you're treating the patient the same way, but it's like medically treating them the same way. But it's like your personality is going to like affect people like so, you know what I mean?
You're impacting people's lives. It's like no matter what we do, and I love that you said this before, it's not even about the music. It's about, that's a tool to connect with people. And I feel like to some level, that's what life is all about. Like we all do different things and we all bring different skill sets to the table and solve different problems. But at the end of the day, if 2020 told us anything, and like like we're all susceptible to a pandemic, we have a lot more in common than we don't. And how can we really just like embrace what we have to make life better for other people? You know, it's really simple when you have that mindset. It's not as like, oh, are people going to judge me? Or it's like, no, for me, having a shift to like a service mentality.
1,000%.
Yeah.
There's this book. Oh my gosh. I have to figure out the name of it because it's literally, I buy it for everybody that I like work with. It's by this guy. His name is Mark Maxwell. I'm finding it right now because it's that good. And okay.
You always have the best book recommendations. Remember, you told me about, I think it was you, The Hollywood Commandments by Devon Franklin. Changed my life.
So good. And
he's now in my workout class, and I think of you all the time.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, is that him? And I like had this moment of fangirling out, and I was like, I can't say anything to him because, you know, but literally, so anyone that hasn't anyone that's listening that has not heard of that, it's basically about, like, he's Christian, but everyone told him, like, not to go to Hollywood because it's, like, such a dark place. And
but it's like that's
where he learned about himself.
But even if that's exactly what, like, loving people is. That's exactly, like, it's like you should go to the dark. Let's focus on people. Stop putting it on, like, how it's the whole, like, focus on other people. Like, somebody was asking me the other day, and I was like, instead of being so focused on, like, oh, how can we make ourselves more like God? How can we make ourselves better people? I was like, we just need to turn that energy outward and start loving other people. And by nature, that's going to fulfill everything else.
Absolutely.
A lot easier too.
Absolutely. Because we get into this, like, fear mindset of, like, if you don't
fear.
think what I think, if you're not, you know, that's so dark, I can't go over there.
No,
and
seriously.
It's like, that is how, when we find ourselves, if you look at the election this past year, where we were so split 50-50 and people were so surprised and shocked by that, it's because we've all gotten so comfortable in our echo chambers, and we're so scared to step out of that. And we're so scared if you think something different than me. And did you see The Social Dilemma?
Yes.
Like, we're literally being polarized so quickly because of AI and because of, like, it's
and people need to realize that you got to put it in I was listening to a YouTube video the other day, and it was saying something about how it's like, someone was like, I just need to delete all my social medias and do that. And it's like, no,
that's avoiding.
No, you need to put it in its proper category, which is self-discipline. And that's, like, listening to yourself. Like, if you are, like, it's just buying you more time. Like, somebody was like, I think I'll be motivated once I hit rock bottom. It's like, no, you just want more time.
Yeah, you're making excuses.
Scared. Yeah.
But, and, like, to your point, anything that is can be used for good can also be used for bad. So it's like learning the self-discipline around that, as well as, like, I mean, just getting to the human trafficking thing. Like, a lot of traffickers are using online means for exploitation, but just, like, that's something bad. Instead of saying, oh, we're not going to go online because now companies are using that to intervene. So it's like, instead of running away from the problem, like, how do we embrace it and use it for good? So
yeah, and, like, really believe I always say, like, trust yourself, and really, like, this goes back to anything. It's like, you have to know for yourself.
Yeah.
If you are listening to somebody and you're just believing in something because somebody else does, or, like, some celebrity you like does, that's why you feel insecure, because you don't believe it yourself. And like, that's why when somebody has a differing opinion, you, like, freak out.
Yeah.
Because you have to believe it for yourself. And I always say it's like you just, at the end of the day, it's like, you have to listen to your gut. Like, you have to listen to yourself, and, like, life is short. Just believe what you believe in. And it's actually, I had this moment, because for the longest, like, I can read people and I can know what to say. Like, I can people please super easy. I can, like, do that. Like, that's not good. That's, like, when I'm unhealthy, I do that. Like, I know how to get a response that I want from people. And I had to realize, even though I was making everybody happy, because I could say exactly what they wanted to hear. So on the outside, it looked like, oh, that's perfect. I'm not bothering anybody. But, like, I'm being inauthentic to myself in a way that's, like, going to hurt people long term.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually healthier of me to be honest. And if somebody says something, instead of agreeing with it, to be like, I actually think this. That's actually better, because it's, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but it's actually better to be yourself and have people disagree with you than to be a yes person.
Totally. Brene Brown, I don't know if you're familiar with her work.
I love her.
But she talks about the importance of boundaries, and how it might seem like setting boundaries or, like, disagreeing with people is selfish, but it's actually one of the most compassionate things you can do, because if you don't set boundaries, then you start to get resentful and bitter, and then you can't be compassionate from a place of resentment and bitterness. And so that's reminding me of what you're talking about, is, like, it might seem in the moment like you're going to help people by, you know, overextending yourself, agreeing with whatever they say, X, Y, and Z, but over the long term, you're actually wearing away at yourself, and you're emptying your cup. And when your cup gets empty, then you have nothing to spill to other people.
Exactly.
So it's that self-awareness of, like, yeah, I can do this. I can be a chameleon and like, fit into any social setting and agree with anyone, but is that going to serve me in the long run? Because if it's not going to serve me in the long run, then it's also not going to serve others in the long run. Then you can't
get your story out too. Because it's like, you don't even know. Okay, I found the book title.
Yes, I was going to ask you.
It's by Mark H. Maxwell. It's called, there was an amazing writer and producer. He passed away, Busby, who was just an amazing person and left such an amazing impact on the music community. And I remember seeing he always had this book and he would always like share it with people. I remember seeing like an Instagram post. And so I like was like, oh, it looks like I should get this book. Let me read it. I got it. I read it. And like one day I order it for all these people and I'm like, you have to read the book. I'm like, I read it twice. It's so good.
What's it called? It's
called Networking Kills. It's like networking skills, and it's X off because we learn that, we're taught that it's like networking. You need to network. You need to meet all these people. And it's like, but there's no value to that. Like meeting people just to meet people.
Because it's also like, I feel like that's a me focus. It's like, I need to meet people.
Well, it's like, that's what I would describe LA. People ask me and I'm like, LA's great. It's a very mutual place. If you can do something for me and I can do something for you, great, we're friends. But the second you walk away, and besides your true friends, it's very like, people don't even like acknowledge that you existed. But this book is called Networking Kills because it's like success through serving.
Wow.
He like was a manager and then turned like attorney. Just like his story's crazy, but like he was just following God, and it was all about through serving other people.
Wow.
And it's like, once again, I feel like everything's neutral, right? So it's like, even with money, it's like, money is a tool. Like money will come, but you got to get off of that and focus on the people. Yeah. And like do things without an expectation of something in return, because like if you're doing something with an expectation, you're going to get resentful and bitter. Yeah. And it's like, that's why it's really important to just be authentic to yourself, because you got to do something that you believe in and do what you love. And like, if there's somebody you see that's really amazing or talented and you're like, I want to work with you, like do it from a place of, I just want to work with you because you're amazing. Not like, oh my God, like you might be big and I want to know you before you're famous. And And like, I don't know. It's just like it's like success through serving, which is the opposite of what every like school will tell you.
Oh, it's very countercultural, but it is like, because at that point it's so unique when someone's like, what can I do for you? That it doesn't matter actually if like, you know, like you have nothing to offer that person in terms of like success and accolades. It's like, wow, this person's seeing me as a person and looking at ways to genuinely improve my life. Everyone responds to that.
And not just like an object. Because I know a lot of times for me, it's like, I feel, well, I'm a 2-wing 3, but I'm like,
I'm a 3-wing 2.
Yeah, but I'm like, when people tell me like, I'm at this point now where I can like, because of the work I put in and because I know who I'm like, I know I'm like good. Like my work is good. Like, and I think everybody should be like, you need to get to a place where you're like, I trust my work. Like my writing is really good. Like my melodies are good. I know what makes me unique because I've spent so long doing it and embracing myself. So like when people tell me, like people give me compliments on that, I appreciate that. But I'm like, I already know that. Like, I want you to just like that's where the 2 in me comes in though, because I'm like, I want to like, tell me I'm nice. Tell me, my favorite
tell me
thing,
things about my character.
Yes. My favorite thing. And I always cry is like when I get DMs and it'll be like people who listen to my music. It feels weird calling them fans. I just say it's like, I say it's like friends. Well, it's literally people, cause they're like,
you're building a community.
Yeah. And it's weird for me because it's like, I'm sharing these things that are like, I can't even describe like feelings and emotions. And they're like, thank you for doing that because I didn't really know what I was feeling, but I was feeling this, and like your song described it perfectly. And they're like, thank you for like doing that and like responding and doing and like always like being there for us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm over here crying.
Yeah, because that's why you do what you do.
Because it's what I wish I had. You have to be what you want.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually leads me to the perfect segue to my next question, which is, if you could tell 13-year-old Lily anything, what would it be?
Ooh, okay, dye your hair this color sooner.
What color was your hair before?
It was like dishwater.
I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, it was. I was gonna like have a picture, my roots are done. It was just like, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, I can't imagine myself with any other color. That's why I had to get bangs, because I was like, I like the length, I like the color. What else do I do? Like, I just need, you know what I mean? I was like,
that's so funny.
I can't get tattoos because I was like, if I get one tattoo, like I'm gonna want a million tattoos. So I can't do that. I can't go there yet.
Yourself.
But I would just say to like, stop worrying about having a story, like, and just live your story. Stop trying to like create something that's not there, and just like, it's not as simple as just like be present, but it's more of like, be more, I don't know how to describe it. I would just say like, you have time. Like, I think we're often told like, life is so short. Life is so short. No, your life is really long. Yeah. Your life is actually extremely long. Yeah. We don't know how long it's going to be, but like, if we have this mentality of like, we're always running out of time, I don't think that's like a good way to live. And I think then it's almost as if like you're expecting for things to like stop.
Yeah. It puts you on a hamster wheel too. Yeah, of like, I need to make it striving.
I need to like make this much money so I can buy a house. Otherwise people are going to judge me. And it's like, why? Like, like, I don't know. I feel like life is really long, and to not try to like rush it. Yeah. Don't rush things. And that goes with like loving the process. It's like we can easily forget the process. That's why I take so many pictures and videos, because I'm like, I love just like, people always like, get off your phone, stop documenting it. And it's like, no, I want to be able to like appreciate it. And those are some of the best times. That's why I like memories. I like seeing that, because in the end, it's like, we don't remember the award. We don't remember like, oh, this person wrote a nice article about us. We remember like the long nights, the like hustling, the like doing all that. Like those are like the days that we're going to look back on and be like, oh my gosh, like all of that, like that's what makes us appreciate it. It's like, appreciate where you come from and appreciate your journey and how much you've grown.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then my last question, the name of this podcast is Imperfect, as you know. What is the imperfection that you're most proud of?
My imperfection. Ooh, okay, wait, this is so deep. I have to think. My imperfection, I feel like it's probably I guess this is kind of an imperfection. I don't really know. I feel like there's nothing that's, I would say, is an imperfection, because it's actually like a good thing.
Yeah, that's the point of the question. It's like,
there was an Instagram post I screenshot about this, is like my ability to love. Like it's really hard for me to receive love, and I continue to love people even when they don't love me, which is not healthy. Like it's healthy for them, but it's not healthy for me.
Right.
But it's something that it's like, I would rather be someone who loves and like hurts, but other people can still receive that love, than be somebody who's like, feels like I'm like being that I'm not able to give love. Right. Because I won't be able to receive it anyways. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? If I'm holding that in. But like, I would rather be someone who overloves and gets hurt, but is still like helping other people, than keep that in out of like fear that they're going to hurt me, because they're going to hurt me anyways.
Yeah, I love that.
In the nicest way.
Yeah.
Like there's this.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I have to, I love this. I always like find the perfect things like at the perfect timing. Yeah. But there was, oh my gosh.
I have a quote too that I want to share that reminds me of what you're saying. It's by C.S. Lewis.
Ooh, what is it?
And it's, to love at all is to be vulnerable. And then it's like really, really long. It's like, basically, if you try to protect yourself, then you're going to put your heart in this like box and like wrap it up, and it's going to be cold and impenetrable, and you won't be hurt in that place, but then you also won't know love. You know, it just will be, I'm butchering it. C.S. Lewis is very eloquent.
Yeah, but no, I totally feel that. And it's, I don't know, it can be a hard thing, because it's like you go through these cycles where you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that, or like do that. Like, but I realize that, I don't know, that's something about me that's like, it just is. And like, I could like turn it off, but that's not gonna help me, and it's not gonna like,
it's who you are. So again, like we were talking about before, like anything that has like a backside to it also is a gift. So that's why I asked this question, because I feel like maybe one thing that we always were insecure about, or we felt like was a weakness, actually can be a strength when we learn how to embrace it. So
exactly. And okay, wait, this is something that I found off a TikTok video. We love that. Okay, shout out, follow me on TikTok at Listen to This in Your Car. But this was like a message to people that are like this, and this is like the best way I can describe it. It was saying, I know this isn't something you want to hear, but I think it's something you need to hear. Sometimes someone's inability to love you the right way is not their fault. If you are the first person to show someone pure, genuine love, they may not know how to reciprocate it because they've never experienced it before. In turn, they may not know how to give it back. This doesn't mean that it's your job to teach them, that you have to tolerate it, or that you deserve it, but I found it incredibly helpful in my own healing to understand that sometimes people aren't hurting you or treating you poorly intentionally. Sometimes people will self-sabotage good things because they don't think they're worthy of it. Sometimes they just don't know what to do, so they ruin it, whether that be by running away, being disrespectful, or causing pain. Sometimes people still have their own growing to do. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you, and it's just that you happen to be there in the collateral damage. I don't say this to justify any of their actions, but offer a different perspective that may aid you in forgiving and ultimately reaching your own peace of giving love.
Wow. That is so powerful. And I feel like it all comes back to the journey, right? Like not only honoring where you're at in the journey, but being able to step back and see that when people hurt you, maybe it's because they're still on a journey of healing themselves. And so just like seeing that, I think takes the pressure off of like, oh, well, there's something wrong with me that they didn't reciprocate this love or they hurt me. Instead, getting away from the me focus and back to, oh, I see their pain. I see their brokenness. I don't have to tolerate that, but I see it for what it is, and I can still love them from afar. And again, it gets back to the boundaries.
And it's like, it is so true, because it's just about being able to like see people's perspectives and knowing we're all different. Because it's like, that's something that's like a strength and a weakness. It's like, yes, I can overlove. They didn't ask me to do it, and like, I can do it. And like, that was purely being like, Lily, that was purely your choice. Yeah, so it's like, I can't be like, hold with this resentment when it was like my choice to do that for somebody. And so it's just making actions to like do everything out of like just pure love versus like, oh, I'm gonna overgive to like get something, or like to just do it without expecting. I'm just trying to live my life, releasing expectations and just like being like, here's what I have, I'm putting it to the table. Even in my music, even in storytelling, it's like, okay, here's my story, here's my song, I'm gonna give it to you. Like that. Once I put music out, or like once something's out, I'm like,
you've done your part.
It's off of my hand. Like, I'm not gonna try to be like force everybody to listen to it. It's like the right ears. I would say the right ears and the right people will hear it that need to hear it. And it could be the day after something comes out. It could be 2 years after something comes out. Like, we don't know. Also, we forget about that. We all want instant gratification, and it's like, it's like, we didn't, like, you know what? The gratification comes from the process, and there'll be more in the future when somebody else discovers it, because the first time somebody hears something or watches a movie or watches a TV show, even if it's 10 years old, that's the first time to them. So it's like, it's old to us, but it's new to everybody the first time that they listen to it.
Right. And you never know how it's going to touch someone. So I love that. Love that.
We love that.
In conclusion, I just would love if you could share to people where they can connect with you, listen to your music, all the things.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'm on all the platforms. I'm a Gen Zer. I think I'm actually, I don't know.
Yeah, you're Gen Z.
I'm a Gen Z, but somebody said there's an in between.
Oh, you're on the cusp.
That's 1997 to like 2002, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know.
See, I just made it in millennials because I'm 95.
Oh, 95. But I am on Instagram at the Lily Kincade, Twitter, Lily Kincade, Facebook, Lily Kincade, pretty much everything Lily Kincade, like my Spotify, Apple Music, obviously. The only one thing that's just like fun is my TikTok, and it's listen to this in your car, like how you would spell it out.
Listen to this in your car.
Yeah, because I would always send people music, and I'd be like, you got to listen to this in your car.
Oh, I
like,
love
it sounds
that.
better. And like, I don't know, I was just like, this is more fun. But, But yeah, I post a lot of like car jams and like just bringing people in on the process of songwriting, because like it's a weird process. And like,
that's another way you can enjoy it.
It's just, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll link all of that in the episode notes. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. I could literally talk to you for hours.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for having me. And everybody listening, you better listen to all the other episodes of this podcast, because it is so good, and you are so amazing. You are so loved. And I want you to do a little small step towards your goal today. Just one small step. Because it can be overwhelming when we think about the big picture.
Right.
One small step. I don't care if it's writing one line of your script, one line of a song, just
one small step. I love that. Well, that is the perfect place to end. Mic drop from Lily Kincade. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.